I know this is a very weird time to talk about this since Dragon's Dogma 2 has been getting shat on with reviews due to performance issues and microtransactions, but I've heard some good things about it as well. If you can throw those aside, it's an incredible experience. That's just what I've heard. I haven't played the game and I don't plan on it at all, but I want to talk about how Capcom basically revived themselves after arguably their darkest era, where it was tough to be a fan of the company and the games they put out, but now it's a full switch up since then. And I really want to go through it and see what is next in store, mostly for Capcom fans. I think we can all agree that the early 2010s was not good whatsoever for Capcom. You had a lot of problems with developers and distributors and a multitude of fighting games that came out during that time span. Maximilian Dude in his video about this topic perfectly explained the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, within the fighting game realm and developing department. But I want to talk about the games that were all coming out to the point where it was feeling like quantity over quality, again, especially with the fighting game genre. It mostly started for me in around 2012 when two underwhelming RE games came out. It was RE6 and Raccoon City. This was the best telling for me that the series went far and far away from its roots, and despite how the sales look now, they didn't look like that back then. Mad McMuscles made the What Happened video for RE6, and one thing caught my attention heavily, and that was the expected sales from what the devs said. They were thinking this game was going to sell somewhere within the range of maybe 10 million copies in the first year, because they were legit on their high horse off the sales of RE5. And they said, okay, let's turn up the action by a couple notches and go even crazier with more campaigns. Those sales didn't realistically even come close to where they wanted it to be, and nearly took them a full decade to accomplish that feat. Operation Raccoon City was just a shoot-around game, and no one really took that serious since it was non-canon. Revelations was probably a decent bright spot because it was such a slower paced game than 6 and did have some elements of survival horror, which was good. Marvel vs. Capcom Origins, Street Fighter Cross Tekken were there as well. Apparently the Cross Tekken game was not really received well whatsoever. Among all the Street Fighter fans that I've come across, they don't really talk about that game. Same with Tekken fans. I think the biggest bright spot of 2012 for Capcom was maybe, I can't say because I haven't played it fully, but maybe from just other people's perspectives, was the first Dragon's Dogma game. 2013 was clouded over the DMC Devil May Cry game, which was fun gameplay-wise once the definitive edition came out, but at launch and the story, people were just fucking pissed. I think Dead Rising 3 came out that year as well, but yeah, for some people in the DMC fandom, it's a thing no one really wants to talk about, and there's probably a good reason why Capcom has not considered going back to that version of the series. Also, shout out to Monster Hunter 4. I honestly feel like that was the only series from how it looks had their shit together, and everything else from RE, DMC, and the fighting game department were just shooting things into the ocean. A lot of people were also saying that Capcom was trying their best to appeal to Western audiences, which was a really bad move on their end. 2014, respectfully speaking, I don't know anything about these games or anything like that. So I'm gonna just move right into 2015, which I do have some familiarity with a particular game. Revelations 2, of course. Also, quickly, the Dead Rising series was going fucking nuts with a game coming out every 3 years, especially for like that pace. But Revelations 2 was really the only thing that I remember from 2015, and it was a good game, very underrated in the RE series. But it wasn't as crazy convincing enough to say Capcom was back because a lot of people were expecting more shit from them soon. However, let's go back to 2014 as to why I said there were barely fuck all games I remember. Because Capcom was working on something that turned out to be a gold mine a bunch of years later. 2016 was a year a lot of lives were made. The Warriors blew a 3-1 lead and my excitement was through the roof until July 4th, 2016. But when it came to Street Fighter fans, they were pissed along with RE fans as well, with Umbrella Corps easily debated as the worst Resident Evil game of all time, and that was when the fans were like, what the fuck is Capcom doing? Street Fighter V came out as a bare-bone game and barely any content, and only got good as years of updates happened, which funny enough was when Capcom began their Renaissance era. But we all know what happened in 2017 with how Capcom started to come up once again. A company that in my opinion was at a high in the mid to late 2000s, then took a dip in early 2010s, and now to 2017, this may be a hot take, but it may be the peak of Capcom. I know that's insane to say probably, but hear me out. So, what do I mean by peak? The absolute top of the mountain where you are at your highest, your peak of your powers and whatnot. We had this discussion of when athletes' peaks were when they were at their best. I genuinely believe 2017 to 2019 was the peak of this Renaissance era, and it all consisted of 5 games that have been very impactful for Capcom and for us all. Resident Evil 7 was first. It brought old and new fans into the series and was such a promise for the team, and the high sales it got. A really good game, and the RE engine was absolutely fantastic. It was the highlight of 2017 for Capcom fans. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite came out, and from what I've heard is that it was kind of a dud. 2018 was, I believe, the year that changed everything. Monster Hunter World came out and is Capcom's most sold video game of all time. Mega Man 11 is the most sold Mega Man game of all time. But for people that come to watch this channel, those were not the highlights to us. There was a particular event that happened that blew everyone's minds, and for RE fans and Devil May Cry fans, that event is etched into our memories probably forever, which was E3 2018. When I saw the RE2 remake trailer, it made me want to go back into Resident Evil. The fact that those two games looked so much different and better compared to RE6 was insane to me, since I was a teenager at the time. I'll never forget that reveal of Leon and the crowd going absolute apeshit. Then the DMC trailer reveal was crazy because they were not fond of the reboot that happened in 2013, ultimately being a love letter to that series and became the most sold DMC game of all time. The Resident Evil 2 remake became the most sold Resident Evil game of all time as well. And take a wild guess what game it had passed to get that title. Resident Evil 7. Of course, if we are excluding all the ports RE5 got, but give it either this year or next, RE2 remake will surpass 5 very soon. Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 2 remake, Devil May Cry 5, Monster Hunter World, and Mega Man 11. Those 5 games, in my opinion, convinced us completely, well, it convinced me, that Capcom was officially back. All record-selling games and were amazing. 2020 was a little bit of a quiet year, but it wasn't terrible. RE3 Remake to an extent was a good game. It's not terrible. It's just the game was short. I enjoyed my time with it nonetheless. But it did leave a sour taste in a lot of RE fans' mouths. Street Fighter V Champion Edition also came out during that time, then Sunbreak and Rise came out for Monster Hunter, on top of RE8, which was another good RE game. They had a great marketing tool in Lady D. It's just a shame that she was the weakest of the 4 lords, and also, the cliffhanger for the game is one of, if not the biggest in the RE series, because we are all dying to know what the fuck is RE9 going to be about with Ethan dead. 2022 was the most quiet year in the Renaissance era for Capcom. Of course, you had the RE8 DLC, RE-verse, and a couple other stuff like, I believe, the fighting game collection. But there were 2 trailers in 2022 that got everyone going damn near crazy, just like 2018 again. There was a very big countdown that was going on for about a week. People were wondering what the fuck was it going to be. But when we found out that the countdown ended around a Street Fighter tournament, we all knew what it was. After many delays, Street Fighter 6 finally got revealed, and for the first time, a Street Fighter game is in the RE engine, and was scheduled to release in 2023, and the game slapped and it got the fighting game community rejoiced. Wins Fighting Game of the Year as well. But let's go to another trailer that hits home for us all. I was so caught off guard with the RE4 Remake trailer being at a fucking state of play, man. When I heard the music and the letters kicking in, it was like, holy shit, I'm getting a remake of my favorite video game of all time. This was so fantastic, dude. I had so much fun playing it, and it's just, wow. It felt like the biggest love letter I could have ever received. It sells super well, and it releases an amazing DLC 6 months later. I can't fathom enough how well that game was, but I also think there was a lot of pressure with that game, not for the sake of RE4 Original, but other things as well. Because of the RE3 Remake essentially being the black sheep of the RE engine Resident Evil games. If they put out a mid-product with 4, the perception of demanding for more remakes, I think, personally changes, and probably makes people think, I don't know if I want another remake, if the game wasn't good. But since it was, the demand for a Code Veronica remake and a 5 remake has been through the roof. Also, let's not forget about Exoprimal, which was a new IP for Capcom. It got some people pissed because it practically trolled Dino Crisis fans. A red-haired protagonist and dinosaurs as your main enemy? Of course they would be pissed, because I would too, but I mean, hey, for a new IP, it sold well. So now, we are in 2024. If I missed some games you guys liked in that span, I apologize very quickly. Dragon's Dogma 2 just came out and is getting mixed reception, like I said in the beginning, but let's look at some other things past that. Capcom announced a new version of the RE engine being in development, which is the REX engine. Pragmata is a game that has been delayed like hell, and I expect something from that game this year without a doubt. But in terms of unannounced games, what is next? Ultimately, I think RE9 will happen. I know RE fans are spoiled like hell, but with how often Capcom pumps out RE, it makes total sense for 9 to be announced and revealed in about a couple months during a spring or summer PlayStation event. There's only one particular gaming series I think is also next, but will take more time cooking up, which is DMC6. I also think this is a prediction. When the REX engine becomes the main engine that Capcom works on, I think the game releasing with it will be DMC6, just like RE7 with the first RE engine. But at the exact same time, I'm not ruling out what could happen with the 30th anniversary of RE, because For some reason, I feel like Code Veronica and 5 aren't even the next remakes. Something's telling me that it's going to be another remake of 1, and that is going to be the game that could also be featured with the first REX engine game, or whatever the case may be. I'm really excited for what Capcom is cooking up and hoping for the best. But I truly believe that 2017 to 2019 era was when everyone came back and so many new people came into the fandom. That, I believe, was the peak of this era for Capcom, and arguably their best ever business-wise. This is pretty much why I call this the Renaissance era, and in case anyone doesn't know what that means, it means revived and has come back. Let me know what your favorite game was and is in this current Capcom era. What game are you most excited for next, and your thoughts on this video. If I dissed any games you enjoy and didn't go over, I apologize for that. So, huge shout out to Maximilian Duke for inspiring me to make this video and did something like that with the Dark Days of Capcom, and now maybe CapGods are back. I eventually think updates for Dragon's Dogma 2 will be good, trust me. Anyways guys, that is pretty much it for today's video. If you enjoyed, leave a like, hit that sub button, all that good stuff. I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace out, and much love.